Hi, I'm Catherine Hammon, Digital Revolution Knowledge Lawyer. I'm going to talk to you about the digital revolution, transformation and disruption. So let's start by thinking about the idea of revolution. How did we get to where we are today? Industrial revolutions began in the 1700s and into the 1800s with the first industrial revolution. The new technology in those days was simply mechanization. People came out of the fields, into the factories, out of the countryside, into the towns. The second revolution happened towards the end of the 1800s into the early 1900s, and it was all around electrification rather than steam power, and also people like Henry Ford were developing mass production techniques so that factories became faster and more efficient from both those aspects. The third revolution came with the internet, sort of in the 90s and the early 2000s, much more recently. The internet we got the internet, we got connectivity, we got mobile connectivity, we got smartphones, and one of the outputs of all of that was big data. Big data turned out to be one of the drivers of where we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, the digital revolution. All sorts of new technologies which are now completely changing the way we do things. And once again, we've got huge transformation, a lot of disruption. The last thing to say about these four revolutions is the really notable thing about this is how much the speed of change has increased. The velocity of change has increased hugely, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge for people to get used to. It's a challenge to accommodate the disruption and the transformation, and it's a challenge for things like the law to keep up with. So these are some of the new technologies which we've got and which are changing our worlds. You can see that some of them are software, some of them are hardware, some of them, like the gig economy, are new ways of doing things, sharing. They're all coming together in different ways. They're not isolated in silos. They can be combined in all sorts of different ways to all sorts of different ends and across all sorts of commercial and industrial sectors. So what is transformation? What's disruption? They're really two sides of the same coin. Think about a London cab driver, a black cab driver. They're renowned for the knowledge. Their brain is actually a slightly different shape because of the impact of retaining all of that information about the whole map of London streets. Absolutely extraordinary. Except that when sat-nav came along, any of us can find our way around London without having memorised anything. Then Uber came along and completely upended the business model by charging half the price for the same journeys. And sooner or later we're going to get driverless cars. So actually we're not going to need human drivers at all. So technology and revolution, disruption, transformation can create completely new ways of doing old things. In fact, originally when we wanted to get from A to B, you had to get on a horse or you had to get in a carriage. Then along came the engine and we got in vehicles, and that's going to stay the same, but we're losing the human being at some point. We'll lose the human being driver. Also, what used to be work sometimes becomes play. So just as knowing how to ride a horse isn't a necessary life skill anymore, at some point knowing how to drive a car will become optional. It'll be a really fun thing that you do if you like that kind of thing. It'll become a hobby because you won't need to do it as a way of just getting around, getting from A to B. So completely new ways of doing old things. Technology can also create completely new things. Think about the entertainment industry. Apart from live entertainment, which is centuries old, anything which is recorded, television, radio, video on demand, Netflix, all of those things, the whole of Hollywood, the whole of the TV industry, the whole of the gaming industry, all of that is completely new. And 100 years ago, cinema was just being invented, but so much of that wasn't even in people's minds as being a possibility. So disruption and transformation open up all sorts of opportunities. They do generate disruption, they do generate transformation. Workforces can be significantly affected, but they also open up the world to new things which are very hard to imagine standing here knowing what today looks like. It's very difficult to predict what tomorrow might be like, but we can be sure that there will be new opportunities, new businesses, new ways of spending some of that time that the technology has freed up for us.